Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Games are consistently coming out on almost a daily basis. However, every year, a handful of games start popping up that just feel different. Not just exciting, but important. And not because the trailers look cool or they're getting hyped up on either Reddit or YouTube, but because if they actually succeed, they could change what we expect from games going forward. So these are games I'm watching right now and why it's their gameplay, not just their marketing, that really matters. The first game I wanted to talk about is Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert is interesting because it represents a real shift from the studio. Pluribus is known for MMOs, such as Black Desert, but this is a full cinematic open world RPG. To give a gameplay overview, this game looks built around momentum, fast but very weighty combat, big boss encounters, traversal that feels physical instead of floaty. Everything feeds into everything else. What you're going to be doing throughout the game is exploring, fighting, upgrading, and pushing further through the storyline. You roam the world, engage in high-impact encounters, improve your character, and take on bigger challenges. The visuals already look great. The real question is whether the systems underneath are deep enough to carry a long playthrough. If they nail that, this could sit comfortably next to games like The Witcher or even Dragon's Dogma. The next game on the list is Chrono Odyssey. Chrono Odyssey might be one I'm more cautiously optimistic about because MMOs are really hard. The space hasn't been in a great spot lately with games shutting down like New World and the recent Ashes of Creation news. I will say I do love MMOs. I could spend hours playing them. I've probably played every one in the market, so I always love to see a new one coming around. Definitely going to give it a fair shake. In regards to a gameplay overview, this is a real-time action MMO built around time manipulation as a core mechanic. You're questing, fighting, grouping with other players, but with abilities that mess with the flow of combat itself as well as manipulating time. But how you fight is the real twist, or what's really meant to draw players to this game. Things like rewinding mistakes, freezing enemies, manipulating encounters instead of just rotating through the standard abilities. If that system holds up long term, this could make MMOs combat feel reactive again. And even if it doesn't fully land, it's refreshing to see an MMO do something different. Again, there's been a lot of copy and paste of MMOs in the past, so I'm always up for something new. The next on the list is Blood of Dawnwalker. The Blood of Dawnwalker feels like the quiet one on this list. No massive marketing push, no consistent trailers, just a slow, deliberate reveal from the team led by the former Witcher 3 developers. For a gameplay overview, this is a narrative-driven dark fantasy RPG, slower combat, heavier atmosphere, a world that changes over time. The core gameplay loop consists of exploring. You make decisions without immediately knowing how they'll play out, and hours or even days later, the world responds. That kind of design sticks with people. These are usually the games that don't necessarily explode at launch, but end up being games that are remembered or looked back on as, pretty big entries to the genre. The next up on the list is the Duskbloods. The Duskbloods immediately stood out to me because it feels like From Software going back to something more focused. It doesn't look like a massive open world experiment like Elden Ring, although Elden Ring was an incredible game. It looks darker, tighter, more oppressive. For a gameplay overview, this is a deliberate, skill-based action RPG. You're exploring interconnected Gothic environments, fighting enemies that punish your mistakes, and learning the rules of the world the hard way. The core gameplay loop consists of the classic From Software. You're exploring, you're dying, you're learning, adapting, and progressing. You push into unknown areas, you most likely fail, you learn enemy patterns, timing, positioning, and slowly the world opens up as you master it. The loop isn't for everyone, but when it clicks, nothing else feels like it. And a new From Software IP is always worth paying attention to. Next up on the list is First Light 007, which is already interesting because it's a brand new James Bond game, which we haven't had in a very long time. This is an origin story It's not tied to any movies or remakes of prior games. IO Interactive is building an original Bond specifically for video games, and that alone puts us in a rare territory. At its core, this looks like a third-person stealth action sandbox game. If you've played any of the Hitmans by the same developer, you're probably going to be pretty familiar with how this game flows. You're infiltrating high-profile locations, things like embassies, events, secure facilities, gathering intel, blending in, and deciding how Bond solves the problem. And of course, there is going to be action, but this doesn't look like it's about consistent gunfights, it's more about reading the room. The core gameplay loop seems pretty clear. Infiltrate, observe, manipulate, execute, escape. You enter a space, learn NPC routines, create openings with disguises or gadgets, and when things go wrong, because they always do, you adapt. That's where IO shines, and honestly, it fits Bond perfectly. If this ends up being a true spy sandbox instead of a scripted action ride, this could finally be the Bond game people have been waiting for a very, very long time. The next one I want to chat about is GTA 6, and yeah, this one's obvious. I don't think you can make a list like this without including this. The developers keep doubling down that this will release in 2026 after multiple delays in the past, but we will have to wait and see. But GTA isn't exciting just because it's big, it's exciting because Rockstar builds worlds that react to you. An overview of the game consists of a massive open world sandbox where story missions exist alongside total unscripted chaos. You're not just completing objectives, you're interacting with systems. NPCs have routines, crimes escalate, small decisions spiral into much bigger problems. From a gameplay loop perspective, the loop has always been explore, engage, escalate, and then escape. You start with something simple, a mission, a conversation, a mistake, and suddenly the world responds, police react, NPCs react, systems collide. That's the magic of GTA, and what makes GTA 6 especially interesting is that Rockstar is still betting on a massive handcrafted single-player experience in an industry obsessed with live service games. Whatever GTA 6 gets right, the rest of the industry will be copying for the next decade. Last but finally not least, I did want to include Fable on this list. Fable is one I'm watching very closely, mostly because it has something a lot of modern RPGs have lost, and that's personality. From a gameplay overview perspective, this is a reboot, it's not a sequel, and Playground Games is clearly trying to modernize Fable without losing its soul. You've got third-person action combat, an open fantasy world, and a huge emphasis on tone, things like humor, choice, and consequence. This isn't about being the chosen one, saving the world in the most serious way possible. It's about who you are in the world and the decisions that you make. The core gameplay loop consists of exploring, interacting, making choices, and dealing with the consequences of those choices. You'll take on quests, you'll fight enemies, and the world around you will change along the way, not just in big story moments, but in small ways too. NPCs, towns, how people treat you. If they nail that reactive world design and keep the charm intact, Fable could stand out in the sea of overly serious fantasy RPGs. And honestly, that alone makes it worth watching. To close things out, these aren't just games I'm excited about, they're games that could shape what the next few years of gaming look like, whether they succeed or fail. So which ones are you watching right now, and which do you think actually live up to the hype? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.